So in this clip, we're going to look at record keeping, which is an important one for a number of reasons, which we'll discuss during this presentation. So as you can see in the start of the assessor guide, it explains what to do in relation to record keeping. This mainly relates to assessment that is completed as a paper-based assessment, which we rarely do at VFA Learning. So have a read through that, but in most cases, this won't apply as much because we're using the learning management system, so things are a bit different. So let's have a look at what happens with the learning management system. So one of the most important aspects of the role of a trainer and assessor is to keep records of where the student's at in relation to completing tasks. Now, this is a lot more difficult if you are working on a paper-based system, but because we've got a learning management system that is very capable, lots of the records are kept for you. So if we quickly look at this, as students complete their assessment tasks on the learning management system, their records can be tracked in something called the grades page. So you can see when things turn green as to whether students have finished the task. In cases where they haven't, these wouldn't be green. So if I scroll across the page, not submitted. So the learning management system is beneficial because obviously it keeps all our assessment tasks online so they can't be lost. So you'd have a situation with paper-based training, which we used to have, where a student would say they'd hand something in, the trainer said they hadn't. It was very difficult to work out whether they had handed it in or not. Now everything is kept on the system and can't be lost. And as I said, it keeps track of whether the task has been completed or not. So it gives a line of sight for both the trainer and the student. So from here, the system's further automated. So if we have a look at a unit, what we've got in this system here is against that unit, it's got a list of all the assessment tasks the student needs to complete. So we've got about 7 tasks there. So what happens is with the previous page we looked at, as soon as everything turns green, that system tells this system that all these tasks have been done, and then this system ticks that unit off as being competent. So the two systems are doing a lot of the record keeping for us. Once they've all been ticked off as competent, this system then tells our VETRAC, which is our student management system, that student can be graded competent in relation to their statement of attainment or their certificate. So as you can see, lots of the record keeping is being done by our systems. So as well as the record keeping done by the learning management system, you'll be required to keep a manual tracker. Now this will be provided as an Excel document, as you can see on the page, which lists all the assessment tasks, and it needs to be populated as students complete their work. Now this tracking is really important, regardless of whether it's done by the LMS or manually, because there has been situations in the past with providers where a student might have been deemed competent only doing half the tasks. You need to have a really solid system in place as a training college to make sure no one is deemed competent on a unit without all the tasks being completed. So the example would be if someone actually had 6 tasks to do to be achieved competent on a unit, but they'd only done 3 and the training college made a mistake and didn't pick it up. And once a student's been issued that unit, it's very hard to go back on it. So that's why we've got these systems in place with our record keeping to ensure that doesn't happen. So we've got the learning management system that does it from an automated point of view, but you also have the tracker, which gives a line of sight to you to see how your students are going, but also your managers. So the managers and yourself will be looking at this to make sure students and classes aren't falling too far behind. Because there's nothing worse if your manager goes to look at your class and finds with 3 weeks to go that they've got a huge amount of work outstanding. So again, this report is important, I guess, to keep everyone accountable to make sure we're staying on top of our classes. The main other form of record keeping you need to be aware of is their placement manuals or any practical logbooks that the student completes. So for lots of courses, they will do a logbook or a placement book or an hours book that needs to be done manually. The reason why it's not done on a learning management system is if you're on placement, it can be very difficult to be getting on the learning management system. You really need a book you can write in. So in this case, once the student has finished that, we've got this table that is maintained by compliance, and they'll let you know as to what has got to be kept on the student's file in relation to that. So in most cases, that placement book will be, once it's finished, kept on the student's file. The student needs to be given an opportunity to keep it if they want. In most cases, the student doesn't. So we've got a file here, that a line here that says what you need to do in keep it on file. Rather than scanning it, it's just easy to go on the student's file. But if the student does want it, which as I said is in the minority of cases, the docs that need to be copied are listed in this column here. So in some cases it's the whole book. In some cases it might be just the last 2 pages. Some important points down the bottom here, that in all cases you need to give the student feedback on how they've gone. So you can't just collect the placement book, correct it and put it on the student's file. You need to actually sit down with the student and go through it to say this is how you've gone with your placement book and give them some feedback. Remember, if you've got any questions about any aspects of the record keeping or how the learning management system works or how to complete trackers, that's where you need to speak to your academic coordinator.